I like setting up fish tanks that clean themselves, with things like snails, shrimp, and by growing plants that eat the fruits of the fish. I'm going to use this old small fish tank for build an underwater jungle. The glass behind it is broken, but I fixed it using glue. Also, I added a black glass cover for cover the back of the tank. All you really need for a filterless tank is a layer of dirt and a layer of something to keep the dirt down. For making that soil mixture, I used fine river sand. Also the topsoil, and as a fertilizer, I used compost. I used a sieve to get rid of the large stones and twigs. I used these two types of soil and sand to make my soil mixture. I added these three and mixed them. I went with just under an inch of soil. Then I leveled the soil layer. Finally, I added a layer of compost to the top of the mixture. It's better to make a slope like this. It's high in the back and low in the front. Then I slowly started filling water. But it sucks. Because of that top compost layer, that's what's causing this mess. Then I decided to mix the dirt soil layer with water. Also, it helps to get rid of the air pockets. And I removed some dirty water. Look at this water surface. It seems really bad. Then I decided to add a fine layer of sand to the top of the soil mix to keep the dirt down. It really worked, and the water is clear now. I dropped in a piece of driftwood and tried out a few different orientations. This one looked like it was growing out of the ground, and I liked the way the bigger roots divided up the tank. I used a rock to stabilize the whole thing down. This is a processed driftwood, because of that it not floating. I'm just going to planting the plants and see what happens. I'm going to plant Vallisneria in the back and it will helps to grow the jungle. I use this Java moss rocks and Java moss driftwood. It will helps to create hiding and feeding grounds for baby fish and shrimps. Also placed some laterite stones. It enhanced the natural look of my underwater jungle. Then I added hydrocotyle plant because I really want the tank look like a jungle when it's grown in. I'm planting pearlweed on the front left side of the tank. Now, I was going to drop in a fresh water snail, because they can tolerate any water conditions, but maybe not the salinity. Then I introduced guppies. They are the best fishes for newly made planted ecosystems, because they can tolerate bad water conditions and they eat mosquito larvae. I dropped in old leaf as a botanical. Botanicals are naturally lower pH level and soften the water. It's time to add floating plants. I added few water lettuce plants and they will grow rapidly. First few hours, guppies and snails explore the new ecosystem. It's time to add a cleaning crew. I added 6 colorful shrimps to the tank. The best thing about shrimp is that when you put them in a new environment, they just immediately resume life, like nothing ever happened. They don't even care how ugly the tank is. They just get to work cleaning up the mulchy stuff. They are only doing good for the aquarium. When I was filming, suddenly I spotted a mum shrimp carrying her eggs. Mum carried the eggs around until they hatch. She cleaned her eggs by constantly fanning them with her swimmer legs to prevent fungus and keep them oxygenated. As part of this cleaning process, Mum can be remove unhealthy or infertile eggs, often by tossing them off. They done this for ensuring the survival of their offspring. Once the eggs hatch, the mum releases the larvae into the water. I noticed sometimes the snail come and check the dead leaf skeleton. I think he try to find any leftover leaf pieces to eat. Some shrimps are hung upside down from floating plants when they rest. Also, they stay calmly. Some are continuously walking. Small insects were attracted to the light, and they fell into the water. Mostly, they are consumed by the guppies, or they contribute to the nutrient cycle. I spotted a guppy. He just pecking some algae off one of the plant. I notice a white cloudy thing on the tank, and I took closer look. Then I realized it's an exoskeleton of an adult shrimp, which they removed in molting period. One day I saw my snail buried in the sand. I think he is dying, but I watched for a while, and I saw his antennae are moving. Then I recognized he is not dying, but can be resting or his offspring. It's time to add some terrestrial plants for my jungle. Taking terrestrial plants like these Syngonium species and growing them in water is really good way of keeping the water clean. I cut old and extra roots and it lead to increasing the growth of new roots. These plants grow quicker when they have access to the carbon in the air. Then I carefully place the plant on the driftwood. This is a great way to remove ammonia from the fish tanks. I used a zip-tight cable to attach the plant, cause it permanently fixes the plant on the driftwood. I planted dwarf hair grass in front side of the tank. It will provide a grassland for this mini jungle. When I put any new thing into the tank, always shrimps come and check what it is. Then I used moss to cover the roots of the Syngonium plant and also the top of the driftwood. Cause moss can absorb nutrients and moisture directly from the water. Another couple of weeks went by and I added 2 Corydoras. One of them staying calm in his new environment. Other one hid for a while. After hours they start their duty, which they happily did all the day, every day. It's been about 50 days since I set up the tank. Look at these tiny creatures. I think it's microfauna like Daphnia or ostracods. The snail have just been licking the glass for 50 days, living their best life. Also, he cleaned the driftwood by eating decaying consumable part and algae. Self-cleaning behavior is a part of regular hygiene routine of the shrimps. While filming the jungle, I spotted a single baby shrimp in the moss canopy. But I lost sight of him for a few seconds, and he just vanished into another dimension. The jungle is still in its infancy, but the plants growing and so aquatic fauna must be happy. Also, the tank is thrived with full of life. I can saw the first generation of shrimp babies. Shrimps came near to the Corydoras when they sift the sand through their gills. Because cories helping to sift the waste through the sand, and shrimps can easily consume the leftover foods. I saw again the snail buried himself and his antennae collect the sense of water and movements. Cories are touching and tasting everything with their barbels seem to be priority. They use their barbels to sense what's underground. Digging was next on the list, and do they like to dig? I reckon they are mostly looking for food, and they dig a little bit to find food. That means they are sifting the sand. Look at this roots of Syngonium plant. It grows really good, but it can be a problem to water conditions. Since they'd broken through the sand layer, they didn't have to rely on nutrients from the water column anymore. The land plants were slowly losing old leaves while adapting to the water. Newly formed roots have entered the water. Their priority is absorb the ammonia, nitrate, and maintain the water quality. After days, the leaf has fallen into the water. I noticed little algae growth in some spots of the tank, and I decided to add trumpet snails. because I don't want algae getting out of control. They really appreciate the soft sand. Few minutes later, they began to dig to bury themselves. I added the food few times only for a 75 days of period, which means the shrimp were thriving entirely on biofilm and decaying stuff. They use their specialized mouthparts, such as pereopods and antennae, to gather food and bring it to their mouth. Corey's takes a few minutes to relax after a long shift. I introduced Endler guppies to this mini jungle. They are famously greedy little guys, so I feed them some small floatin' feeds. A small fly fell into the water, and a lucky guppy took a chance to take the snack. A member of the cleaning crew hung upside down and cleaned the undersurface of the leaf. Still no water movement in the tank. It's not good for environment. I want to circulate water in this direction. For that, I'm going to use a mini pump. First, I check the mechanism of flow speed. Then I use a small mesh as shrimp barrier to prevent shrimp babies getting sacked into pump. Finally, close the lid. Now, it's ready for use. I attach the pump to the glass and turn on the switch. The guppies immediately came to see what was going on there. Corys and guppies played with water current all the day. I think now they are very happy. My corys are now busier than ever, because food flows with the current of water. Guppies love to play with the water current. They play all the day. With the water current, a new guest arrived. I didn't see them after the day they were put in the tank. Maybe a stream of fresh oxygenated water can pull trumpet snails out through the sand, because they can sense every change in the water, but they can tolerate difficult environmental conditions and can adapt accordingly. Finally, they were lucky enough to enjoy a delicious meal. After being submerged in water, the leaf began to decay and creating a valuable food source that shrimp graze on and scavenge. It's been 3 months and shrimp mothers are happy to walk about in the open carrying all their babies. I think this can be the second generation of new shrimp babies. Six months had passed, and the mosses and hydrocotyle and floating plants had grown in. Every plant and animal in the tank seemed to be thriving. And there was nowhere you could look without seeing some kind of life. When you fill a shallow tank with plants, it doesn't take long for them to pop up for some of that tasty carbon dioxide. Look at this beautiful flower. The shrimp and guppies had also spread to every corner of the tank, which meant there were probably hundreds of shrimps. Sometimes guppies get stuck in the plants, so it's time to trim the plants. You can see the floating plants grown all over the tank, especially the duckweed. It has rapid growth rate than other floating plants. It's not good for other plants. Because they'd covered the surface, they had a monopoly on access to light, so unfortunately, they had to go. So I took most of them out, even though I like the way they look. Cause they are gonna to grow back eventually anyway. Next I'm going to remove some Vallisneria plants. The roots had weaved their way into soil and to everything, which meant I had to pull them out very slowly, very carefully, and one by one. It was a mess. Then I decided to use a scissor to cut the roots and stems. Also, I trimmed the stems of hydrocotyle plant. Finally, I finished trimming the plants and added few water lettuce plants. Hundreds of shrimps gather at lunchtime. One of them steals the guppy's food and enjoy it. He helps to keep the algae to a minimum before it starts to cover every surface. Trumpet snails licking their delicious meal and marching towards the surface. I only added 2 of them, and now they have a family. Look at the color patterns on snail's shell. It was algae that gave the snail's shell its miraculous colors. This place is a sanctuary for baby shrimps and guppies. Terrestrial plants' roots provide them with the best hiding places to live their best lives without risk. Guppy Mum quietly observes the snail's daily routine. Now, there can be hundreds of shrimps and guppies. Maybe at just 500.